Amara, a young girl with radiant brown skin, lived in a world of endurance and tolerance. Working for the Lambert family, a wealthy and arrogant white millionaire family, she understood that her life revolved around nameless chores, harsh commands, and contemptuous glances. The Lambert family's mansion stood atop a luxurious hill, with towering doors and rooms adorned with expensive artworks. Every morning, Amara began her work before the first light of dawn. She had to clean every item, polish each crystal glass, and prepare lavish breakfasts for the family. Despite her relentless efforts, Amara never received a word of praise. Instead, she was often harshly criticized by Mrs. Lambert, the authoritative woman of the house. "Amara, what kind of cleaning is this? There's still dust on the table. How many times do I have to remind you?" Mrs. Lambert shouted, forcing Amara to bow her head and apologize. Even though she knew the table had already been thoroughly cleaned, Amara didn't cry. She wouldn't allow herself to be weak. She understood that, in this world, tears wouldn't solve anything. But deep down, she always wondered, why was she treated this way just because of the color of her skin? One night, after finishing her work, Amara returned to the small room behind the mansion. The room was just big enough for an old single bed, a tiny cabinet, and a mirror dulled by time. Though uncomfortable, it was the only place she could call home. Amara sat on the bed and took a small, worn wooden box from her pocket. This box was the only thing she had brought with her from her time at the orphanage. Opening it, she gazed at a simple yet delicately crafted silver necklace. The pendant was heart-shaped, with faintly engraved words inside. "For my beloved child." She held the necklace in her hand, overwhelmed by a strange feeling. Faint memories began to flood back. She vaguely recalled another home, where a gentle woman used to hold her close and sing her lullabies every night. But the images were too blurry, as if they were just fragments of a dream. "Do I have a family out there somewhere?" Amara wondered. She had no idea how she had ended up abandoned at the orphanage. All she could remember was living in a world devoid of love for as long as she had been aware of her surroundings. Yet, this necklace, with the words inscribed on it, was the one thing that made her believe that someone, at some point, had loved her. The Lambert family was the epitome of wealth and power. Mr. Lambert, the head of the household, was a successful businessman in the real estate industry. With his tall stature and sharp eyes, he was a decisive man, often preoccupied with meetings and major projects. Despite his wealth, he was cold and indifferent toward those who worked for him. Mrs. Lambert, in stark contrast to her husband's reserved demeanor, was an arrogant and controlling woman. She constantly sought to assert her authority, not only over the staff but also over her friends and relatives. To her, Amara was nothing more than a lowly servant, existing solely to serve her family. The two Lambert children, Emily and Andrew, were no different from their parents. Emily, the eldest daughter, was a beautiful but selfish and haughty young woman. She often ordered Amara to perform unnecessary tasks just to feel important. Andrew, the younger son, did not treat Amara as poorly as his mother and sister, but he showed her no respect either. To Andrew, Amara was simply the maid. Every day, Amara worked tirelessly to ensure that everything in the house was flawless. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, the Lambert family always found something to criticize. They were never satisfied, and this made Amara feel like a shadow, invisible and without worth. One day, the Lambert family hosted a grand party at their mansion. Wealthy and famous guests from all over gathered for the event. Amara was tasked with preparing for the party, from cleaning the house and setting the table to serving drinks to the guests. While she was busy with preparations, Emily intentionally spilled wine on the floor and shouted, "Amara, get over here now. Don't you see I need help?" Her voice was filled with arrogance, and her gaze made it clear that she saw Amara as nothing more than a lowly servant. Amara tried to stay calm and quickly cleaned up the spilled wine, but as she straightened up, Emily deliberately let her glass slip. spilling the wine all over Amara. Her plain clothes were instantly stained red with the wine. "Oh my, Amara, how could you be so clumsy?" Emily exclaimed dramatically, drawing the attention of all the guests. Some laughed, while others looked at Amara with pity. Amara felt her face burn with embarrassment. She lowered her head, said nothing, and quietly left the room to change her clothes. Back in her small room, she stared into the mirror and whispered to herself, "They have no right to make me feel so small." Yet, she couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her face. For the first time, Amara felt like she couldn't endure it any longer. Her heart was filled with questions. Was I born to live like this forever? That question began to awaken a powerful will within her, a determination to uncover the truth about herself and reclaim her worth. After the humiliating night of the party, Amara resolved not to let the insults from the Lambert family break her spirit. But a glimmer of hope unexpectedly appeared when she overheard a conversation between Mr. Lambert and a guest. Mr. Jonathan, a wealthy businessman and close friend of the Lambert family. While bringing tea into the study, Amara overheard Mr. Jonathan recounting a heartbreaking story. "Many years ago, my friends, the Foster family, lost their only daughter. She was kidnapped right from a park when she was just 3 years old. To this day, they still haven't found her. It's devastated them for years." Amara froze upon hearing this detail. The story stirred a strange feeling inside her, as if she had heard it somewhere before, especially when Mr. Jonathan mentioned the necklace the girl was wearing when she disappeared. A silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. Amara felt as if the blood in her veins had stopped flowing. The description matched exactly the necklace she had been keeping. She tried to remain composed, carefully placing the tea tray on the table, but her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Mr. Jonathan, whose sharp eyes missed nothing, noticed Amara's unusual expression. As she left the room, he couldn't help but watch her with growing curiosity. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She took out the necklace and stared at it for a long time. Faint memories rushed back. A gentle woman with long hair smiling at her, a large house with a garden full of flowers, and the sound of cheerful laughter. But soon, those images were replaced by painful memories. The cries of children in the orphanage, meager meals, and the overwhelming sense of loneliness. Could I be the girl in Mr. Jonathan's story? Amara wondered, yet the thought seemed far-fetched. She had no idea where to begin to uncover the truth. The next day, in a rare moment when no one was watching, Amara decided to approach Mr. Jonathan. She brought the necklace with her and asked, "Sir, I overheard your story about the necklace of the kidnapped girl. Does this necklace look like the one you described?" Mr. Jonathan's eyes widened in astonishment as he looked at the necklace. "This is exactly the necklace, but how do you have it?" he asked, his voice filled with suspicion. Amara recounted the story of her childhood, how she grew up in an orphanage, and how the necklace was the only thing she had from her earliest days. Mr. Jonathan fell silent, as though pieces of a long unsolved puzzle were finally coming together. As Amara gradually uncovered clues about her identity, the Lambert family continued to pile pressure on her. One morning, Mrs. Lambert discovered a small scratch on the glass table in the living room. Although the scratch wasn't Amara's fault, Mrs. Lambert unleashed her anger on her. "You're always useless. I don't know why I even bother paying an incompetent maid like you," Mrs. Lambert screamed, while Mr. Lambert and the 2 children stood by silently, not saying a word. Amara tried to explain, but Mrs. Lambert refused to listen. In her rage, she shoved Amara hard, causing her to fall to the floor. The fall not only hurt Amara physically but also crushed her sense of self-worth. That night, lying on her small bed, Amara sobbed uncontrollably, but amidst her tears, a powerful resolve began to rise within her. She decided it was time to break free from her circumstances. "I can't let them keep treating me like this. I have to find out the truth about myself and take back control of my life." With newfound determination, Amara began her journey to uncover the truth. She spent her rare free moments at a nearby library, researching cases of child abductions from years ago. She came across an old newspaper article from over 20 years ago, detailing the disappearance of billionaire William Foster's daughter. The 3-year-old girl, Isabella Foster, had vanished from a park in New York. The article clearly mentioned the distinctive silver necklace. Amara felt a strong connection to the story. If I really am Isabella, what happened to me after I was taken? She wondered. But the answers still seemed elusive. She decided to speak with Mr. Jonathan again, hoping he could help her piece together the puzzle. When she told him about the article she had found, Mr. Jonathan couldn't hide his emotions. He said, "Amara, I'll help you get in touch with the Foster family. But first, we need solid proof." Mr. Jonathan arranged a meeting between Amara and the Foster family to conduct a DNA test. While waiting for the results, Amara was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. If I'm not Isabella, then who am I? But if I really am that little girl, will they accept me? These questions lingered in her mind. But she knew this was the only path to reclaim her identity and find her true worth. After many days of waiting, the meeting with the Foster family was finally arranged. It took place in a luxurious hotel suite in the heart of the city. As Amara stepped into the room, her heart pounded wildly. Inside, William and Elizabeth Foster were seated, waiting. Though both were older now, their eyes still shone with hope and emotion. The moment Elizabeth saw Amara, tears welled up in her eyes. "Young lady, you," she choked, unable to complete her sentence. William, a man with a stern demeanor, couldn't hide his emotions either, his eyes fixated on the necklace Amara wore, as though it held every answer he had been searching for over decades. Amara bowed her head and greeted them, her voice trembling. "Hello, sir. Ma'am, my name is Amara. I don't know if I'm the person you've been looking for, but I have this necklace, and I just want to know the truth." A DNA test was conducted immediately afterward. A medical professional took samples from Amara, William, and Elizabeth. During the wait for the results, the atmosphere in the room was a mix of tension and raw emotion. Elizabeth couldn't take her eyes off Amara, and at times, she gently reached out to touch Amara's hair, as if to assure herself this wasn't a dream. "My daughter, if it is you, disappeared when she was only 3 years old," she said, her voice quivering. "We searched for you everywhere, but not a single lead ever turned up. So many years have passed. All I could do was pray that one day you would return." Amara didn't know how to respond. She kept her head down, struggling to hold back tears. She didn't want to let herself hope too much, fearing that if the results weren't what she wished for, the heartbreak would be unbearable. 3 days later, the DNA test results arrived. Mr. Jonathan, who had been by Amara's side throughout, was the first to open the envelope. As he read the results, he smiled and nodded. "Amara, you are indeed the daughter of the Foster family. There's no doubt about it." Amara froze, unable to believe her ears. Elizabeth burst into tears and embraced her tightly. "Isabella, my daughter, you've truly come back." William, despite trying to maintain his composure, couldn't hide his emotions. He stepped forward, placed a hand on Amara's shoulder, and said, "From now on, you won't have to suffer anymore. You're home now." Amara, who had always felt lost and without a place to belong, was now welcomed by her real family, but she also felt overwhelmed. "I've never lived in a real family before. I don't know if I deserve this love," she murmured. Elizabeth held her hand, her eyes full of tenderness. "You don't need to do anything to deserve it. You are our daughter, and that's all that matters." The Foster family decided to take Amara back to their estate. It was a grand house surrounded by lush gardens and a sparkling lake. As Amara stepped inside, she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Faint childhood memories began to become clearer. "I used to play here," she said, her voice trembling. "I remember this garden. I remember that swing." Elizabeth hugged her tightly. "Yes, my love. This is your home." As Amara gradually adjusted to her new life, the foster family decided to confront the past. They wanted to uncover the truth about what had happened after her abduction. William hired a team of private investigators, determined to find the person who had destroyed their lives for decades. For her part, Amara no longer had to toil as she once did. But she never forgot the hardships she had endured. She began learning how to live in the love and care of her family. Elizabeth helped her pick out new clothes and took her to luxurious stores for shopping. "You've spent too much time living in deprivation. Now it's time for you to enjoy life," Elizabeth said. Despite living in luxury, Amara couldn't forget what the Lambert family had put her through. One day, she decided to return and face them, not out of revenge, but to confront them one last time. Amara arrived at the gates of the Lambert mansion in a luxurious car driven by the foster family's chauffeur. When Mrs. Lambert saw her, she almost didn't recognize her. "Amara? What are you doing here? Who do you think you are to come back?" she demanded angrily. Amara looked directly at Mrs. Lambert, for the first time feeling no fear. "I'm no longer the maid in your house. I am Isabella Foster, daughter of billionaire William Foster, and I'm here to tell you that you were wrong." The entire Lambert family froze in shock. Emily, who had always looked down on Amara, stood by with wide eyes. "This can't be true. You're lying," she shouted. Amara replied calmly, "If you want, I can show you the DNA test results. But that's not the point. What matters is how you treated me all those years. I've endured enough." The encounter ended with the downfall of the Lambert family. Their abusive behavior was exposed by the Foster family. The media quickly picked up the story, and the Lambert family faced intense public backlash. They lost their reputation, respect, and were even forced to sell their mansion to pay off debts. As for Amara, she didn't feel triumphant. Instead, she felt a deep sense of relief that she had finally closed a painful chapter of her life. Forgiveness isn't about whether they deserve it. It's about whether you deserve peace, Elizabeth told her. Amara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I won't let the past hold me back anymore. I will live for the present and the future." After officially reuniting with the Foster family, Amara felt the warmth and love she had never experienced in her entire life. William and Elizabeth never ceased caring for her, striving to make up for the years she had endured hardship. They shared with her the sorrowful days following her disappearance and the relentless but futile efforts to find her. "We never gave up, Isabella. We always believed you were still alive, somewhere in this world," William said, his voice choked with emotion. Elizabeth often spent hours sitting beside Amara, recounting little stories from her childhood. "You used to love the garden out back. Every morning, you'd run out there to pick wildflowers. I can still remember the radiant smile on your face when you brought them into the house," she said, her eyes filled with emotion. Amara gradually felt a sense of belonging and love in every word and gesture. Although she still sometimes felt out of place in her new life, she knew this was where she belonged. She began to call Elizabeth and William Mom and Dad, a moment that brought them immense joy. While Amara enjoyed her new life, the Lambert family faced the consequences of their actions. After the Foster family brought the abuse to light, the media quickly picked up the story. Articles exposing the Lambert family's treatment of Amara flooded newspapers and social media. Mrs. Lambert became the primary target of public criticism. Guests who had attended the party at her house came forward, recounting her rude and discriminatory behavior toward Amara. The Lambert family's reputation was swiftly destroyed. Emily and Andrew, the two children of the family, were not spared from condemnation. Andrew expressed regret and chose to remain silent, but Emily maintained her arrogance and denied any wrongdoing, further fueling public outrage. The Lambert family was forced to sell their mansion to pay off debts, moving into a smaller home in the suburbs. Mrs. Lambert, once proud of her wealth and power, was left with nothing but humiliation. Amara learned about the Lambert family's current state, but she felt no satisfaction. Instead, She felt relieved that the truth had finally come to light. My past is behind me, and now it's time for me to move forward, she told Elizabeth. One day, Amara decided to visit the Lambert family again, not to seek revenge or dwell on the pain she had endured, but to prove that she had risen above it all. She arrived at their new home, carrying a bouquet of white flowers. When Mrs. Lambert opened the door, she couldn't believe her eyes. Amara, no, I should call you Isabella, she said, her voice filled with unease. You can call me whatever you like, but I'm not here today to reproach you or seek justice. I'm here to tell you that I forgive you, Amara said calmly. Mrs. Lambert couldn't hide her astonishment. Forgive? You're really forgiving me? Yes, forgiveness isn't about whether you deserve it. It's about me letting go of the past. I don't want old wounds to control my life anymore, Amara said, her gaze steady and resolute. Emily and Andrew were also in the room. Andrew, who had shown remorse, stepped forward. I'm sorry. I know an apology isn't enough, but I truly regret what we did to you. Amara nodded. I accept your apology, but what's more important is that you change. Not just in your actions, but in your mindset. She left the house feeling a deep sense of relief. Amara knew she had done the right thing, not for them, but for herself. After closing the painful chapter of her life, Amara began focusing on the future. She decided to use the position and wealth of the foster family to help those who had experienced circumstances similar to her own. She founded a charity called New Hope, dedicated to supporting orphans and marginalized individuals in society. The organization provided shelter, education, and opportunities to help them build better lives. Amara spent much of her time visiting orphanages, meeting, and talking with the children. Every time she saw the hope shining in their eyes, she was reminded of her younger self. If someone had reached out to help me when I was a child, my life might have been different. Now, I want to be that person for these children, she said during a press conference. Amara's story quickly spread, inspiring millions of people. Newspapers and television channels praised her as a symbol of resilience and compassion. But for Amara, the most important thing was that she had found the true meaning of life, to love and help others. Amara was no longer just the daughter of the foster family. She had become a strong and compassionate woman who transformed the pain of her past into a driving force to build a brighter future. As the New Hope charity grew, Amara became a symbol of resilience, not only within the Black community but also around the world. The story of a maid who endured discrimination, discovered her true identity, and rose above adversity touched the hearts of millions. Schools, social organizations, and even major corporations often invited Amara to share her story. At every event, she emphasized the importance of forgiveness, perseverance, and compassion. I once believed this world was a dark and unjust place, she said at a major event. But I realized that how we face challenges determines whether we turn them into opportunities for change. Amara's story also inspired many public figures. Artists wrote songs, composed plays, and even produced films based on her journey. The documentary The Road Home, chronicling Amara's life, was nominated for international awards, further cementing her influence. Her story was no longer just about overcoming adversity. It became a beacon of hope, proving that strength, kindness, and determination could create ripples of change across the world. During her journey of building the charity, Amara met Nathan, a young lawyer with noble ideals. Nathan became her companion in advocating for the rights of children and those facing discrimination. Nathan was not just a dedicated colleague. He was someone who truly listened and understood the pain Amara had endured. On one visit to an orphanage, Nathan said, "Amara, you're not just someone who overcame adversity. You're a source of hope for everyone around you." His words moved Amara deeply. Over time, she realized she saw Nathan as more than a partner in her work. He was someone she could trust and lean on. Their bond grew naturally through shared work, long trips, and endless evening conversations. Nathan didn't hesitate to express his feelings either. One evening, under the romantic glow of candlelight, he said, "Amara, I don't just love your strength. I love the way you've turned your pain into purpose. I want to build a future with you, not just for us, but for all those who need help." For the first time in years, Amara felt she deserved to be loved. She agreed to begin a relationship with Nathan, and their love became a new source of motivation in her life. Amara never forgot those who had helped her along the journey to rediscover her identity. She organized a grand gathering at the foster family mansion, inviting Mr. Jonathan, staff members from the orphanage where she had once lived, and old friends. During the event, Amara stood before everyone with a microphone, her voice filled with emotion. "Each of you, whether knowingly or unknowingly, has helped shape the person I am today. I am grateful for every moment, and today, I want to share this happiness with all of you." Mr. Jonathan, who played a crucial role in reconnecting Amara with the foster family, was presented with an honorary medal from the New Hope organization. "Without you, I would have never found my way home," Amara said, her eyes glistening with tears. The gathering also included children from the orphanages Amara had supported. A young girl ran up to her, hugging her tightly and saying, "I want to grow up to be just like you." Those simple words made Amara feel that all her efforts were worthwhile. The event became a celebration of love, resilience, and gratitude, a testament to how far Amara had come and a reminder of the difference one person can make in the lives of many. After years of dedicating herself to the community, Amara decided to celebrate a significant milestone in her life, her wedding to Nathan. The ceremony was held in the garden of the foster family mansion, the very place where Amara used to play as a child. The wedding was not just a celebration of love between Amara and Nathan, but also a symbol of reunion, forgiveness, and compassion. Elizabeth and William, dressed elegantly, couldn't hide their joy as they watched their daughter find her safe harbor. During the ceremony, Amara gave a heartfelt speech. "Today, I'm not just celebrating my love for Nathan, but also my journey, from an orphan with no place to call home to someone who has found love and hope. This is not the end, but a new beginning." The event ended with laughter and joyful tears from everyone present. Amara and Nathan, hand in hand, walked forward into a bright future. Her story, from adversity to triumph, stood as a powerful reminder that nothing is impossible if you hold on to faith and perseverance. As the evening sun began to set and guests started to leave, Amara stood before the New Hope organization's headquarters, gazing up at the sign bearing its name and her legacy. A soft smile graced her lips. "This is only the beginning," she said, her eyes shining with determination.